Zelda games are all about exploring and having an adventure in a huge open world, and a good example of this is the Wind Waker. You have an entire ocean to explore with loads of islands to visit. Now, some people might call this game big, but the game was actually planned to be even bigger than it already is. There are a lot of unused or early versions of islands and maps within the files of the game. And today, we're going to take a look at these strange places. First up, a strange island. This archive is called a Nami, which translates to a wave. It contains an invisible island. The reason why it's invisible is because its model is missing from the file. It shares several similarities with another unused map called VR Test. For one thing, the two use the same collision mesh, which means that in one map the ground is invisible, and with the other, not. Besides that, it's the same. Secondly, they have some very similar actor setups, though a Nami contains 2 extra bokoblins, a moblin, and some large trees. Now this island must have been an early version of something, but it doesn't really look like anything in the game. So it must have changed a lot if it was once an early version of an existing island, or this island was just completely scrapped. It doesn't look like it was ever finished. A huge part of it is invisible after all. Now on to the next one. This time, submarines. This archive is called AB Ship. It contains all the submarine maps, including Room 3 Ark, which is never loaded in the game. The room itself is indistinguishable from the other submarine maps, and a lone torch is positioned at its center. The small chamber that once would have held its treasure chest is empty. A ladder that was intended to grant access to this chamber once Link had solved the submarine's puzzle remains embedded within the ceiling. However, since the room lacks a solvable puzzle, the ladder cannot be activated, rendering the treasure chamber unreachable, but for cheats. Trying to leave the room via the doorway crashes the game. This is likely due to the fact that the room doesn't appear to have any defined exits. Now the file name of this room doesn't tell us a lot, but by the looks of it, it appears to be an early version of the room that we see in the game. A lot of stuff is missing or just doesn't work at all, but there's also another option. They could have used this room as a layout. Many of the submarines or inside boat levels look alike, so maybe they all built the rooms from one setup. This would save a lot of time since you don't have to start from scratch, which is a good thing. Although there are some things in the room that aren't in most of the levels in the game, which is a bit weird. And the exit is also non-existent.
Now on the next one, Amos T, the terrain test map. This archive is called Amos T, which stands for Armo's Test. It contains a test map with a variety of terrain for Link to scramble over, including steps, ramps, ladders, crawl spaces, slippery floors, and a pool of water. The textures in this map are recycled from an identical test room in Super Mario Sunshine. So as the name already suggests, this is a room to test all the terrain types and stuff like ladders. They most likely used this to test the animation for things like crawling, and since they had it laying around from Super Mario Sunshine testing days anyway, they could just reuse it for Wind Waker. They only had to add some items that were used in Wind Waker and that didn't appear in Sunshine. So this one was most certainly to save time during the development. Notably, the water is transparent, and that's an exception to the opaque blue of the water in the final game. There is also walkable terrain at the bottom of the pool. This may have been used to test the water boots, an item akin to the iron boots from Ocarina of Time that was ultimately cut from the game. The Great Sea does conceal a featureless, invisible plane that exists not so far below the surface of the water. Using cheat codes, it is possible to walk on it. Now, this isn't the only test room in the game. Oh no, there are way more, and they are a bit freaky and kinda cool at the same time. For example, K-Test 2, the Object Test Map. The game's map select refers to this area as a place to test objects. Its content is mostly comprised of treasure chests, but it also features a knight statue from the Hyrule's castle's basement, as well as an electrical fence whose function is tied to a switch. If you step on it, the fence deactivates. And then we have K-Test 3, NPC Test Map. The game refers to it as an NPC testing area. And to be honest, it's not lying. It contains Tetris pirates and many characters from Outset Island, with a few exceptions. But there is more. K-Test 4, the Enemy Test Map. An enemy testing area, and it contains various enemies, including choo-choos, bubbles, and peahats. Now, there are way more versions of all of these. For example, there are test maps containing all sorts of puzzles for dungeons, and others that contain all sorts of collectibles. Obviously, this was all for testing. We don't have to give any examples as you can clearly see this, and by the looks of it, they tested almost everything. I mean, just look at it. So many different rooms with everything you can imagine. And everything works perfectly without a single problem as far as we can see. By the looks of it, they put a lot of effort and time into testing the game. But the maps we have covered so far aren't even 10% of the unused maps in the game. I'm not kidding. So we have a question for all of you. Do you want to see more of this? Since we can look at rooms like early versions of dungeons that are completely different. Rooms that were planned but never saw the light of day, and way more. So click the upper right corner to leave your answer in the poll, and if enough people want to see it, we will cover as many as possible. So, did you test the subscribe button yet? I heard they made it so you get notified for future videos, which makes it harder for you to miss them. Or interested in the game that had more scrapped content than there were test maps? Then make sure to check out Kirby and the Crystal Shards. And don't forget to vote if you want to see more Wind Waker stuff. Like, really, it would help.